No
All right.
worries, Tyler.
And action, right? Okay. See, and I wanted to start recording because here I was getting ready to talk to Tyler about being a podcast rookie. And I felt like, okay, this is gold. So, Tyler, are you nervous right now? Or,
Yes, yes, I am.
okay. Because I mean, I'll jump right in with your background. I mean, I saw that you have a PhD. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In what? It was something very smart.
I I studied mechanical engineering, got my PhD at Purdue University in Indiana.
Uh-huh.
I specialized in control theory there, so it's sort of the I like to play around with the boundary between computers and hardware. I like the mechanical aspects, but I love the computer aspects too. And so control theory is right where they meet, and I
Uh-huh.
get to use computers to make machines do things.
Oh,
That's
wow. Okay. You just kind of blew my mind there. So it's almost like you enjoy computers that then control computers. Is that
or other machines,
other
hardware.
machines? Gotcha. Okay. Like
Yeah.
assembly line things, or are you developing robots that will someday replace us? I mean, is this kind of where you're
Uh,
headed?
right now, I'm developing cameras that spy on people.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's just it's a little bit of an interesting topic.
Yeah.
But actually, they're used primarily in the warfighting scenarios and protecting our troops, basically
Oh,
giving
wow.
them eyes in the sky so that they can see what's around them in a safe
Okay.
way.
That's pretty cool. That is. I would ask you more questions, but I'm sure everything is classified, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I don't know why I always go to this, but when someone has a PhD, do you enjoy being called doctor?
I do not place a lot of
Andrea,
weight
go.
on titles.
All right.
No, if people call me doctor, then I feel the need to call them bachelor or
Oh,
master, whatever degree they've attained, right?
yeah.
High
Exactly.
school graduate.
Yeah. Trade school, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but so all right, there we naturally got to your background. And Andrea, what's your background? So you were have been a teacher.
Yes, so my background is I have a degree in teaching. So I've taught junior high and also some university courses. But primarily, my main focus has been being a stay-at-home mom. So I have been home with my kids for almost 14 years. Our oldest is almost 14. So,
Okay.
yeah, I've had a lot of teaching in the home.
Do you enjoy teaching older people or younger kids better?
Yeah, I like that junior high, high school age. It's we're a weird bunch people that like like that group, but I totally do. And so yeah, I've taught junior high and college, which I really loved.
Okay, and then I see on the about from your website, betterscreentime.com, college level Spanish.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
are you fluent in Espanol?
No, I wish I were, but no, I lived in the Dominican Republic for a year and a half, so
Okay.
I learned Spanish there as a missionary. And yeah, in the Midwest, there are a lot fewer Spanish speakers, so it
Yeah.
was I was able to get a job teaching beginning Spanish.
She's being modest there.
Is
She can
she?
converse in Spanish just fine.
Tyler, do you speak Spanish?
Well, no, I'm trying to learn to keep up with her, but I'm checking out books from the library that are targeted at 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm learning.
I think that's I don't know, my dream, but my wife, neither one of us speak any foreign language, but I think there's a family that we know that they both went to Japan on a mission, and so they can talk about their kids in front of them in Japanese, and I just think that would just be brilliant. I really do.
Totally.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
Pig Latin for a long time, but now and then the kids eventually learned Pig Latin, so then you can't do
Yeah.
it.
Well, Tyler's got the word helado down, which is ice cream. So
That's an important one.
They're very nice, right? Okay, well, I'm grateful that you're here, and I was going to go full disclosure on I think the therapist in me. So I do a lot of speaking in the area, and I will get asked to come talk about screen time and the whole concept and how what is too much and I kind of feel like I can go into some nice generic therapist-y things about empathy and judgment and these sort of things, but I don't know that I have the real data to kind of back up much in this area. So I really almost just want to kind of sit back and just let you guys drive. What got you to start betterscreentime.com in the first place?
yeah.
Well, it was searching for that data, basically.
Okay.
We found ourselves with an unexpected move out to Oregon, where we are now, and it put our family into sort of I won't say an emergency mode, but it changed things. Everything was in turmoil. And at that same time, our oldest daughter was getting to where she wanted to have a cell phone. And we started making these decisions, providing these things for our kids. And with all the chaos going on, we quickly found ourselves not being comfortable with how it was working out. And so we started looking for information on what's the right way to handle this scenario. How do we keep our family together, not let our kids go too far out into the unknown with all of these screens, and found that there is not really a handy way or not a great consensus on what the right approach is yet.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that led to this.
Did you start off, I mean, before you went on that, trying to find the data, were you being a bit arbitrary, as a lot of parents are? I mean, were there, here's a rule, there's a rule? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, oh, go ahead.
I say we quickly realized that we needed to have a plan.
Yeah.
Something that we all agree on as a family, so that we know what our rules and our boundaries are, and then we can work with that.
Well, and that's where I think when I talk about the generic things I know to say that it is, I talk about that arbitrary, and, I'll take your phone, I won't take your phone, you've been on it too much, you haven't, I feel like I can comfortably say that that's not productive. And when I'm talking to a teenager, for example, they eventually they know that even if the parent says you'll get it back when you're better, or whatever that means, that they can't trust that. So at some point it just removes all hope, because they know that it's going to get taken away or not, and whatever that looks like. So I feel like I can lead people to the point of where, okay, let's figure out those rules, but then I don't really know what to do from there. So
right. Yeah. So we came up with a plan just to basically presented it to the kids and said, okay, this is our family technology plan. This is what we're going to do. These are the rules. But of course, we lacked a lot of experience. And so there were a lot of things that we left out. And it also was us kind of being the, I guess, control freaks, or however you want to put it, just kind of telling the kids this is how it's going to be. And we just realized as time passed that wasn't the right approach. And you might be familiar with a guy named Simon Sinek.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. There's like a 15-minute talk of his that is that the one you're?
Exactly. Yep. So he has a TED Talk called Start With Why, and also a book by the same name. Okay. And it's targeted toward, business leaders, but really when you think about it, as parents, we're leaders too. We're leaders in our home. And so as I read that, I realized that's why our approach was so wrong, was because we had started with our kids. So we said, this is what the rules are. If you're on a device too long, this is what happens. But we realized instead we needed to start with why. And so how that plays in is that we got our kids involved. Okay. And so we started this thing called a family tech think tank, which is kind of a mouthful, but basically a think tank is a brainstorming session that a company might do. So they might pull all their bright minds together, and they'll do a strategy session, and they're just gonna brainstorm, right? So that's what a think tank is. And so we thought, well, that would be great. We know that family councils are effective, family councils are good. What if we could kind of mesh those two ideas together? So that's kind of what we did. Got the kids together and got them on board to create a family tech plan together. Okay.
So, and if you're okay, I want to try to see if I can force or mesh a bit of some of the things I love. And one of those is this nurtured heart parenting approach, which in that one, it is you don't want to be the punisher. You want to be in a position where you can encourage, build inner wealth. So the theory there is that I like this idea. It's the think tank. So it is we want to come up with the rules together, so that then it isn't just you saying this is the rule. I mean, is that kind of where we're going with that? So then they feel like, so then if they're breaking the rule, they can't just say, well, I don't like the rule, because they were part of making the rule. I mean, is that part of the, okay. And in nurture heart approach, I'll always say you lovingly manipulate. I mean, is that what you do here too? Or is there a little bit of that? Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when we're leading the discussion, we've got a little bit of an agenda in mind. Like we've talked about it together ahead of time, and we are trying to steer and guide the kids in a certain direction. But I think that's the key word, is guide. Yeah. and then we're encouraging dialogue, and so it feels a lot less forced.
Yeah, it also gives the kids an opportunity to shape the rules, or maybe, bring up points that we wouldn't have considered or thought of ourselves. And it helps them see why we're putting these rules in place, rather than just coming down with a set of rules that they have to follow.
I love it. I do. So then, all right. So family tech think tank then is really the brainstorming session. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So then, and you talk about you guys knew going in, or you had an idea. So, your whole kind of goal is helping parents have positive screen time strategies, right? So do you kind of would you recommend that they're going, again, parents are going to have a pretty not well-oiled machine, but they've talked about this a lot before they go into the family tech think tank. So how do you, okay, what are some strategies you recommend then, as far as with the positive screen time?
Yeah, so obviously our main strategy is having this family tech think tank, and so and coming up with a family technology plan together. Okay. So I think when we were looking for answers, we might find like a cell phone contract online that you could print out or things like that. And again, that's going back to the what. So if we want to start with the why, then we need to involve the kids. And so like we don't do a cell phone contract, we do a family technology plan. And so that holds all of us accountable, including Tyler and I, because as adults, we need to be held accountable too, honestly. And as our kids get older, I think this is another thing that we learned, that when our kids were young, we had a lot of, you have a lot of control over, I guess, their environment and a lot of things. But as they get older, we really wanted to come from the point of teaching our kids. So, I think in each home this will look different, but for us, at some point when our daughter does have a smartphone, we want to teach her how to use it. Because I guess I don't want to send our kids off when they're 18 and be like, here's your smartphone, call me and learn how to use it. So it's kind of needs to be this gradual process. So I guess our strategy is just involving, having this family tech think tank. And we did this over the course. In fact, we still are having these conversations, but probably over the course of like 6 months. Okay. We did 8 to 10 different topics about different things related to technology.
Okay. Well, I got to point out before we get too far down the road how well you handled me asking a kind of dumb question there, which I loved. So you had already laid out the family tech think tank, and then I still wanted to go back to this. But, what do you do first so that you have this complete plan in place to bring to the family tech think tank? And you very kindly kind of went back over that. No, it's not really the goal, right? So, it really is. That's more collaborative. So when you guys are getting together beforehand, it's not that you have to have this this perfect model in place, because then that would go against the, hey kids, what do you think? Right.
Right. Well, yeah. But it is good to get on the same page. And of course, the other thing I think is helpful is that we don't always agree as couples on technology and how to handle technology. And so having that conversation beforehand is helpful for a couple of reasons. One, so that you can kind of get on the same page. And it's also actually helpful if your spouse doesn't agree with everything you say, because it gives you a chance to see things from the other side and also to think of things that your kids might bring up. Because, all of our kids are smart, and they're going to bring up things, and they like to challenge some of the things that we say, right?
Of course they're going to challenge, and it gives us a chance to maybe develop some answers, or at least think through those challenges before we have to do it in front of the kids. So yes, we'll have different opinions, and we'll have one topic that we want to address, and we sort of think about how we're going to address that with the kids, and then go and have the discussion.
Do you remember anything that you guys disagreed on initially when you started kind of going through this?
Yeah. Well, there's one thing I think that's a real challenge for a lot of people, and that is just monitoring devices and apps. So that's something that we're going to be sharing more about on our website, but maybe you can share your initial thoughts on monitoring devices. Like,
I don't like monitoring devices.
Okay.
Just funny. Considering what you do for work in a way.
Right. It's a tricky topic. I don't like feeling like people are watching over my shoulder, and makes me feel untrusted, basically.
Yeah.
I also personally, I see our kids going outside of the home, and I know that there's going to be scenarios where I can't monitor them.
Yeah.
So between that sort of limitation and the amount of time and effort it takes to effectively monitor people, I don't feel like it's the right answer. My personal opinion is teach them how to do things the right way, and then we have to trust them to do it, or let them do their best effort at it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I see these tech think tanks as a way to teach our kids. And some of the strategies that we implement is introducing the ideas to them piece by piece, rather than just giving them the keys to the car and say, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then on the, the reverse side is there are some parents who are never going to take the time to do a family tech think tank. That's just the reality of it.
Right.
And so if using a monitoring app or device, a Disney Circle or whatever it is going to prevent their little kids from seeing something pornographic or something that could be damaging for their whole life, really, image printed in their mind, I think that's great that those things exist for that reason. So we've kind of come together and come up with an approach where we have this image of a house, and we kind of start with, how do we build the house? And the first thing is to have the conversation with your family, right? And that's like the framework of your house, or the foundation.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to start. And then the second thing is the doorknob, and that's like your passwords. And, those are smart things to use. We need to teach our kids to have good passwords, and we need to password protect our things. And then the third thing is the blinds on your house. And those are like the monitoring apps and devices that we might use to block out, anything unwanted on our devices.
Okay.
And so those are options that parents have, but we just need to realize that there's kind of a good, better, best. So there's a best way to approach it, and that's by having the conversation first.
Okay. So I love this because that you disagree, but you've kind of come to this, and I'm not going to say compromise, but your awareness around this. Because so if I'm going to be super honest, when people, I have an online pornography program, and I've worked with people for a decade plus, and if I get asked what's the best monitoring software, what's the best filter, my initial reaction wants to be, ideally it would be none, because I have enough people that the filter, and I love the fact that it can give them pause, or I love what you said where if that does even help give peace of mind, or even just to kind of know that it's there, but if some of the core issues are not being talked about, or if then the person's still going to do their best to find their way around the filter. And I hear that stuff all day, right? But I don't want that to discourage anyone from ever putting a filter on. I still think that they're really good. So I love that. So yeah, ideally, it would be great to not, and they can govern themselves. But in the world of, the habit cycle, you've got a trigger and a thought and action, and whatever you can do to put that distance between thought and action. Sometimes that filter is what you need. Yeah. So I like your house model too. Did you say there were 4 things though? Are we missing one?
3. Maybe.
Oh, 3. Okay, 3.
I might have said there were 4. There are only 3.
Okay. All right. No, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. We have about 15 minutes left, and I want to cover like a bunch of things. So are you ready? Kind of a little bit of wrap up. I want you guys to get to anything too. I know that some of the questions that I think people will have are, you've mentioned, obviously we're talking cell phones and teenagers, and I think people would send me bad emails if I didn't address, what are your thoughts on when? Do you get that question all the time, of what age? And okay.
Our kids ask us that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we've come to the conclusion that we can't do it based on age.
Yeah. Okay.
That's been kind of frustrating for our kids to hear.
Yeah, we should say we have 5 kids.
Okay.
So I think when you have a big family, you realize how different personalities are, and just their responsibility level and all of those things, that just picking an age isn't a great idea.
Good. Okay.
So instead, we've worked hard to instill the idea that it's based on behavior and I guess capability or
responsibility, and
maturity levels.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so we're trying hard to identify ways to indicate when somebody is mature enough to use the
I'm
technology.
glad you said that. I mean, as you're throwing those out, I was already thinking, okay, those are some kind of ethereal or ambiguous terms, right?
Right. Yeah. So what we actually did is with one of our family tech think tanks is we asked the kids, we didn't say anything about devices. We just said, what do you guys think? What does it look like when someone is emotionally mature and they're responsible?
Oh,
What does that look like?
Okay.
And that was all. And so they were like, oh, they do their homework.
Ah.
They get up when they're supposed to. They do their chores without asking. So we made this whole list. We were like, yes. And when someone does those things most of the time, then they're probably ready for a personal device.
Wow.
And that was this list, and we turned it into a self-evaluation, which we actually have on our fridge.
Do you really? Okay, is that available on your website? That looks really nice.
Yes. So if you subscribe to our email list, it comes to our email subscribers.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's got a list of 12 questions. And, even that being said, we have a 9-year-old who could answer, and it says like, okay, I'm still learning sometimes and almost always. We have a 9-year-old that could probably answer all of these almost always because she's super responsible. The very last question says, do I have a need for a personal device, and do my parents feel that I'm ready? So that's kind of like our final, yeah, you probably could, but our 9-year-old she isn't even asking for one, but that's kind of our capstone question where we can kind of say, yeah, but you don't need one yet. And so.
I love that. Okay, that's right there. The fact that you have because people want, and I feel even bad when I was saying, okay, you guys, it's all up to you. When can they have one? I wasn't trying to push that response, but people just they just want to know, and they don't know where to start, and I feel like that's the thing I get all the time, and they want me to tell them, and I can pull the therapist card and ask them how that makes them feel, But so I love that you got this list, that you can kind of work. Okay.
It helps.
Yeah.
But I will say that it varies from kid to kid, and I'm sure it would vary from family to family too. So it's still no easy answer. And we find ourselves constantly changing or having to go back and do another think tank as we've identified some new topic that we haven't clearly looked at before.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I think what I'm kind of hearing, or one of the keys to that though, is it keeps the ball rolling, right? So it's not like this is the final thing and we're done and we're not talking about it anymore, or I don't know, or any of that. That's great. Okay. Are you okay if I do some very specific questions? Maybe some from things from your website. So 4-step plan for your teen's cell phone use.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Showing up.
Right. We have the diagram here.
Okay. This is cool.
All right. Graphic. Yeah. Okay. So the idea is basically kind of how I alluded to this earlier, that we don't want to just give our kids full capability for something right away, no education, no instruction. For example, I used to work for Caterpillar, and I got to operate bulldozers, and they were amazing, and it was really fun. And I kept feeling like I had the ability to push over any tree or any mound of dirt that was in my way. And then I started to get scared because I thought, what if there's a car in front of me? Or what if I do some damage with this thing? So it was a learning process for me, going, bit by bit, learning what I could do, how to operate the machine safely. And cell phones, I think a lot of times we don't recognize how much potential there is there, how much power they have, and how much influence they have on our lives. And so it's easy to hand a kid a cell phone and think, oh, well, it's just my old cell phone, no big deal. But actually, it's opening up this entire world to the kid that they're probably not ready for.
Yeah.
So the 4-step plan is introducing functionality bit by bit as the child demonstrates that maturity or the capability to handle it and do it right. So we start with just a feature phone, the old-fashioned LCD screen. It's very basic, and it can do texting and calls and maybe pictures.
Most people call it a flip phone.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that gives them the ability to communicate, which is an important safety feature. I think it's good for people to be able to reach out and communicate. After that, we transition to a smartphone, but that has very limited functionality, only slightly more than what the feature phone would have. Maybe a camera and email on top of what was there before. Again, go with that for a while, make sure that they can handle that. And then we can step up to introducing some other apps that they might enjoy, maybe a game, maybe some audio, whatever,
Yeah.
and this is where it's up to the parents to decide what
Mhm.
they want to introduce and when, but basically stair stepping to eventually giving them full reign with the phone and social media and everything else that's out there.
Yeah. So social media is the very last thing that we recommend adding, just because there are a lot of things to consider when it comes to being responsible using social media.
Yeah. Well, so in maybe a nice segue there is with social media. Do you guys deal with, or do you run into people that feel like their teens are addicted to their devices, or what do you do with that, or what have you found in that area as far as research or any of that?
Yeah, I mean, the research really varies, but there's plenty of, I'm sure you've heard of Colin Karchner, but he goes around and talks a lot about the social media use, and a lot of people are just loving his message. But really, there are studies that say that social media can cause anxiety and can cause depression. But I think at the end of the day, it always comes to an underlying problem. So usually there's just a need that's been unfulfilled
Yeah.
in a child or a teen, and that's what they're turning to. So I'm sure, I mean, you deal with this all the time, right?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that we can turn to when we have an unfulfilled need. And so
I mean,
that's just one of the things.
I just say in the world of addiction, it really is that's the coping mechanism, right? For not feeling whatever. And I think with teens, and that's an easy one to go to if they don't feel connected to their friends or their family or their, any of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something to escape to, even like when they're at school, or sometimes I'll start to think, okay, this isn't a bit as big of a problem as I think, but then I'll go drive past the middle school to go pick up my daughter or whatever, and I'll see a teen all by themselves just looking at their phone. And they honestly, you can tell by their body posture, by their demeanor, that they do feel lonely. They do feel isolated. And so it can be a problem. I don't think it's the only problem, and that's why our motto, I guess, is to worry less, connect more with your kids.
Okay.
So we were trying to help people. I'm a huge worrier. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start this, because we want parents to feel hopeful.
Yeah.
And to not worry as much. But also like realizing that, it's not just the technology that's the problem. It's just that we've got to, create an environment so that we're prioritizing real people first.
Yeah. What I really like is, I'm a big fan of, it's the seek first, understand. It's the leading with empathy. It's the, because I feel like parents, they just come blasting out the you're on your phone too much, or, you shouldn't need your phone, or I grew up without a phone, and none of that says, tell me what's going on.
Right.
It's just shame. That's pretty much all it is.
Yes.
No, I like that. Now, do you have though some 5 strategies that you use if somebody is struggling with technology addiction? Do you guys have it?
Yeah. So these are just, really, we haven't had a teenager that's been addicted to technology, but we've just seen addiction with people that we've been close to throughout our lives. And so these are strategies that we even pull out to prevent addiction.
Oh, gotcha.
So
okay.
These are helpful even if someone is addicted, and you might even have some things to add to this, because I know you know a lot about it. But one thing that's helpful is to have a daily one-on-one check-in. So this is just accountability, right? And we all know that we're much more effective at changing habits and changing things if we have an accountability partner.
Yeah.
So this can be just checking in with your child and finding some time to connect with them. So it can be like, just yesterday, I needed to take dinner to someone, and I told my teen, I was like, hey, you want to come with me? Because it's not very often that when you have a large family, you get a child one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
And so we hopped in the car, and we were only together 10 minutes, but there was some conversation that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So I think just finding those opportunities to connect one-on-one. Another thing that helps is just to establish tech limits with your kids. So we covered this already, but rather than deciding on the limits on your own, get your kids involved.
Yeah.
The third thing is to talk to your children about the dangers of technology addiction, which is also what we do in the Family Tech Think Tank. So really helping them to be aware that it can be an addiction, And obviously, and this also varies depending on what book you read and who you talk to, whether it's an addiction or not. But I think we can all see that it's a coping mechanism that a lot of people use. And so just letting your kids know, hey, if you feel like this device has more control over you than you have over it, then that's, let's watch out for that.
Yeah.
Another step is just to be willing to reevaluate. So a really good friend, I think he was in his 70s, told me that when he was growing up, that his mom said that I reserve the right to be wiser today than I was yesterday. And I've never forgotten that. And obviously, as parents, we want to be consistent. We want to try to stick with our word. But, sometimes we've never done this before. We don't know better. And so we can tell our kids, I gave you a cell phone way sooner than I should have. And that was the place where we found ourselves, where we were like, oh, this was too much too soon. So you can reevaluate and adjust. Never be afraid to do that. And the last is to identify unmet needs, which we also touched on.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of paying attention to, if you feel like anyone in your family, it could be yourself, it could be your spouse, your kids, if anyone is turning to a device often, and they're finding that they're finding time to be alone with the device for long periods of time, those kinds of things are warning signs that maybe there's some unmet need that we don't know about.
And I got to throw in there I'm such a no guilt, no shame, because I feel like those questions even need to start with tell me what's going on, tell me more, tell me what your relationship is like with, do you ever struggle with, or those kind of things. And I feel like too many times parents just go in hot, you're on your phone too much, and it just now you've got both people getting their defensive stances, and now it's it's just not productive. So all right, there was a phrase I found that I know I was mispronouncing. I think I've got it down now. What is technoference?
Yeah, technoference.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So we've just been doing a lot of research, and there's an actual research article, a study done about a new term they came up with technoference. And Tyler drew a great cartoon. You'll have to check it out on the website. But it's basically got a mom, and she's cooking her dinner, and it's in flames. And then there's a kid looking up at the mom, but she's just staring at her phone. So dinner is burning. The kid's looking at his mom like, please look at me. And she's just, scrolling Instagram or whatever. Yeah. So technoference is just interference with technology in our daily lives, which I think is just inevitable. So we accept that, but we come up with a plan to avoid that. And one of the things that's been helpful for us is to have a family charging station. And so when we walk in the door, we put our devices there. And I've loved it because I've found that when I'm reading Harry Potter at night with my son, I'm not feeling a buzz in my pocket. Yeah. I'm not thinking, oh, who else needs me right now? Because the person who needs me is lying right by me, and it's just, if somebody really needs me, they'll call, right?
Yeah.
You can call if it's an emergency, and it can usually wait. And sometimes we think that text messages and, all the buzzing, but it can't wait, but it can.
You might have to teach kids what calling is, though. I think
right. Yes.
And I, when you mentioned that I don't feel the buzz in my pocket, I will tell you I'm fascinated by some of the studies, because I feel like I've found it as well, or the research around the phantom vibration. I don't know if you've ever felt that, right?
Yes. I felt that.
Yeah, I have too. I did. I have in a while. Okay, a couple of more things, and then one. I want, if there are things that we haven't covered that you guys want to cover, I would love to talk about that too.
The one thing that's been occurring to me in this conversation is you've mentioned a couple of times, Tony, about going in hot.
Yeah.
It never works out, and I think that happens to all of us as parents, because we can't put our finger on exactly what's wrong.
Yeah.
We see something that's not going right, and we just say, put your phone away. That's too much of that, or whatever it is. And what our strategy, I think, is really founded on is the idea of recognizing what the real problem is, taking the time to identify the problem, and then communicate with our family what the solution is going to be. Try to put bounds on it. Keep conversation always going, so that we don't have to jump in at inopportune moments. We've already talked about this before. we're all on the same team.
Yeah, I love that, and that's why I really do. I love even just the fact that you guys do this. You have the website, you have really cool printed things, you've got articles. It sounds like I'm a paid endorsement. I'm really not, but I just like it because I feel like when people have no idea where to go, then that's when they're just inconsistent and they are angry or frustrated. I mean, you guys give a nice place to just kind of start from. There's good information. I know you're not saying that yours is the only way, and if a parent doesn't do the things that you suggest, that they are horrible parents. I know that's not your message, right? But it starts the conversation. It kind of gives some structure as well. Oh yeah.
Well, and one other thing to add then is that we initially wrote up our discussion points for our Family Tech Think Tank, and it was kind of this big, long PDF, and we found that it was too much for people. So we just updated it just this last week. So we have a quick guide to the first 2 discussions, which actually links to a Google Doc. So there's a PDF you can print out, and it's like 4x6 cards. And it basically just leads you through the first 2 discussions that we did with our kids, and that can give you a family tech plan. Okay. So it's just a really great place to start. And as a teacher, I am working on a few online courses.
Oh, nice.
Behind the scenes, I'm just getting started to help walk parents through the rest of those discussions if they want.
Yeah.
But there's enough there to get started and to not feel overwhelmed. So we'd love for people to check that out on our website. It's just a quick guide, free download.
Okay. So betterscreentime.com.
Betterscreentime.com. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook. We recently started a Facebook group.
Okay.
And so you can find that by going to our Facebook page. You'll find the group as well. And yeah, we just want to help get this conversation going and help each other.
Okay, I love it. All right. I am curious, Tyler, your maiden voyage in the world of podcasting. How do you feel?
I'm surviving.
Yeah.
I think I'll be okay.
You did well.
Just don't do that thing where you manipulate what I say so it sounds really bad, like I'm an evil guy.
You know what's funny is that there was a hesitation in the recording right there, so it's going to actually now seem like I did manipulate your voice. So, the best part would be now if I do record over that something with a completely different voice,
That would be perfect.
That would be awesome.
All right. I've got ideas now. Okay. All right. And anything else that you guys want to add? I'm so grateful you took the time today. I really am. This is great.
I think that was great. Thanks for having us. We're grateful to you.
No, thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna hit stop on the recording, but hang tight here real quick.